Yeah. Okay, well, I think we can start, right? So after ordinals and runes, we are actually going to be talking about something super exciting, which is DeFi on Bitcoin. And I have got three great experts, okay, let's get the name right, to help me to unpack the opportunity, but also the challenges that we are facing and where we are building a new financial system on Bitcoin. So I would like to start with a round of introduction. So Engin, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Engin Erdogan. I am VP of Product at Thesis. For those who don't know about Thesis, it's a Bitcoin venture studio. We start our own projects, fund them, and spin them out. Some of our projects include TBTC, the EVM implementation of Bitcoin, and one of the most credible Bitcoin bridges in the market that's been live for over 4 years, with over 3,000 Bitcoin already past the bridge. And Mezzo, which is our sidechain effort that started about the beginning of the year, and Acre, which is for Bitcoin rewards, Bitcoin yield, and Fold, which is started out as like a Bitcoin rewards card, and currently operating almost like a neobank infrastructure. It's kind of like a front end to a larger crypto infrastructure, Bitcoin-based infrastructure. Our vision is to build the full-stack Bitcoin economy, and we are one of the few companies in the space that actually can credibly commit to that type of a big vision. With all the products that I just talked about, the vertical integration across those enables us to think about use cases that starts with at the very low levels of crypto-native transactions all the way to how things connect to something like a neobank, so that as we think about the current bank stack, including your checking, saving, mortgage, lending, retirement accounts, starting with these, how these may move into a more native Bitcoin-driven infrastructure. So that's where we are. We also recently launched a Bitcoin DeFi accelerator to accelerate our efforts in DeFi to invite builders to come and work with us and deploy applications that are pushing the envelope on Bitcoin innovation.
Hello. Hi, guys. I'm Tristan Dickinson. I'm the CMO of exSat Network. So exSat Network is a scaling solution for the Bitcoin ecosystem, and we aim to really scale the Bitcoin ecosystem, but without sacrificing Bitcoin's ideology. And we do this through a number of different methods, but really great to be here, great to be in Amsterdam, my hometown, actually. I was talking to the guys before. It's lovely to be able to bike ride over here and not have to sleep in a hotel and then come to an event. But really excited about the panel today and excited to hear from all of us.
Hey, everybody. This is Charlie from Bitlayer. Kind of talk about my surf journey, how I entered the Bitcoin ecosystem first. So I never claim I'm a Bitcoin maxi or laser eyes. I was actually jumping into the Web3 space because of Ethereum in the Ethereum Berlin from 2015. I was a first-round investor for Polkadot, brought Polkadot to China, was very actively working with Web3 Foundation from Germany and the Netherlands. Became the head of APAC for Polygon, so was like very familiar with all the ECL2s. Ordinals really orange pill myself. We have some speakers talking about Ordinals. I was first week on Ordinals as well. Got a lot of rare sets, BRC20, and a lot of interesting innovation on Bitcoin L1. Last year in Singapore, Token 2049, that was kind of the reason I inspired myself because of Domo and Casey talking about leave Bitcoin L1 alone, push some of the garbage UTXO to other ways, and basically try to scale Bitcoin with new approach. We are one of the first Bitcoin BVM research group from last November. Since then, we launched our mainnet early this year, become pretty active on ecosystem. Excited to talk about the Bitcoin ecosystem. In a nutshell, Bitlayer trying to be this programmable, trustless environment with the BVM2 approach to verify the state transition back to Bitcoin layer 1. So we have the high-level programmability as an EVM or real-time VM, but I have the transaction verified back to Bitcoin L1 to have the same security level as Bitcoin, which is a very important thing as a fundamental to scale Bitcoin ecosystem.
Great, thank you. So I want to go straight into one of the key issue about scaling Bitcoin, because obviously it's great that we can expand the ecosystem, we can do more things, like you said about, build neobanks and, payment and everything, but there is a substantial problem of trust. When we are adding all these mid layers, how you can really conserve the trust that is so much at the core of the Bitcoin community. Charlie, you go.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. I think for people to build things on Web3, or as a user or investor on Web3, trust is the most important keywords, right? We want to have like a trusted environment. We don't want to trust certain type of centralized authority or some kind of single point of failure. But we also, philosophically, there's some trust involved. I know Solana guys very well. It's just entirely unique and different culture, which all these new L1s you can never just copy, because culture or whole ecosystem, it requires time to really build trust, build like this whole momentum. Without time, it's not gonna stick around, right? All these new things, people came up, all kinds of new jargons, buzzword. Most of them are now battle testing across 2 cycles. Only Bitcoin is being here for the last 15 years, and it's gonna still be here in the next 20 years and 50 years. And I think building things in Bitcoin is the only thing will matter, and at least like matter the most, right, in the long run. Yeah.
And I think just going off the back of that, I think trust means different things to different people, right? So some people might trust the Bitcoin ETF because they're familiar with BlackRock and they trust BlackRock as a regulated entity. Other people might trust that there's an EVM integration, which means you trust smart contracts over people, which I think the EVM ecosystem is a lot more used to, trusting technology over people. And then other people might trust custodians and they might trust exchanges. But I think what it really comes down to is being able to provide a lot of opportunities and a lot of different opportunities for people. So if you trust ETF, great. If you trust a custodian, great. If you trust an exchange, great. If you trust smart contracts, fantastic. So really expanding the kind of capabilities and opportunities for different people to really leverage their Bitcoin assets. And to your point earlier, Charlie, around there are people that are sitting there with Bitcoin and cold wallets and they don't want to move it, and that's fine. But there also are a certain amount of people that are sitting there thinking, I want yield on my Bitcoin. And even if that's only 1%, there's 300 billion in dormant Bitcoin sitting in cold wallets. 1% is 3 billion. So it's a significant amount of liquidity that can bring a lot of benefits to the Bitcoin ecosystem, but to the broader ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really interesting that in order to grow DeFi, we really need, first of all, to have choice, give people choice, and that's why we are building the tooling. But Tristan, tell me about how at exSat you think about interoperability, because that's a key element in driving the liquidity that we need for DeFi to grow.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I mean, the Bitcoin ecosystem is kind of been known for not being overly interoperable, but what we're starting to see is a lot of solutions that they have different integrations with the different ecosystems. Bitlayer is EVM compatible, exSat is EVM compatible, BounceBit is EVM compatible. There's a lot of different scaling solutions that are integrating other networks to make it easier. If you have an ERC20 token and you want to access the Bitcoin ecosystem, it's not a problem. And I think over the next year and a year and a half, we're going to see a lot more integrations, maybe Solana, SVM, and a lot of different networks and layer ones as well. And I think the proliferation of L2s really kind of proved this point. I think there's over 70 plus L2s, and this has really come about in the last year or two. So I think by its nature, adding different integrations for different ecosystems is a really important aspect. But exSat, the ideation around the project, and exSat stands for Extend Satoshi. So it's an ideological nature, but what we really thought about was one of the most important parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem is actually Bitcoin data. So it's called UTXO data. So how can we get that UTXO data, which is actually really hard to access because the transaction time is 10 minutes, finality is 60 minutes, it's not overly interoperable. How do we mirror that exact data and put it onto an on-chain decentralized repository that people can query, read, and write to, and then be able to access? And how can we do that and really help to expand different use cases? And then, talking about some of the use cases, if I've done something on the Bitcoin native network, I don't necessarily want to have to bridge my asset again. But if I have a network where I can see that that's happened on the native network, and then I can trigger a smart contract off the back of that, me as an end user, I'm happy, because instead of 2 bridges, there's 1. Or instead of sending it once, sending it twice, you send it once. And I think that's how we kind of approached it in terms of quite similar to a lot of other solutions, which is also fantastic because the Bitcoin ecosystem is really scaling and expanding. And so integrate different solutions, EVM and SVM, et cetera, but then also really focus on that UTXO data. And then if you can reduce a barrier, which is one extra bridge, do that, because that really helps the end user. And that's a big part of crypto. I think focusing on the user experience is, at times, the last thing we do. It's more, does the technology work? Is there an opportunity? And then let's fix the user experience. But why don't we reverse that? What's the user experience? And then, potentially we can get the use case out of that.
Yeah, and there are, you talk about having multiple bridges, and then we have multiple bridges assets as well. That, what is the future of these bridging assets?
Maybe if we kind of zoom into interoperability a little bit, I can see two specific instances that really matter to Charlie and Tristan's earlier point of how we can kind of think about this in a larger scale of adoption. One of them is that the immediate traction for utilities are on EVM-based chains, right? So how does this relate to anything that's built on Bitcoin? That's one challenge. The second challenge is any utility that we build on Bitcoin, how does it interact with the regulated financial system, right? I would say that these are two interoperability challenges that really matter. Our approach to the first one is that we build our products with Tristan's point about user experience. We abstract away the complexity, but we make sure that Bitcoin and EVM chains are synchronized at the asset level, at the yield level, at the wallet interactions level. We have toolkits for all of these layers that essentially synchronize EVMs and Bitcoin base chain. For interoperability with the regulated financial system, how you actually bank with Bitcoin, I think that's kind of the simple way of putting it. We are very, very specific on that, and we have a very particular vision for how Bitcoin could be used, not just like a currency, not just like oil, but almost like land that you can cultivate. So the question is how do you make your Bitcoin productive without spending it within the existing regulated financial system? So for that, we have some innovations coming down the pipe, including a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin.
Interesting. So, Charlie, you just raised 9 million extension Series A at 300 million valuation, right? So you are seeing actually, investors supporting what you are building. The last question that I wanted to kind of raise is about investment in DeFi on Bitcoin, which is something that we definitely need, and there are a few crypto investors out there, but not all of them, they are actually on Bitcoin. So I would like you kind of I know, Engin, you are actually, a venture studio, but what's your experience and how are you seeing the investing landscape changing and the support that you get from investors?
It's a great question. I personally have been investing since 2015, right? I think one way or the other, we are all investors, right? You invest your time, energy, or money into the Web3 space. So I would claim we are all investors, but there are different types of investors. There are speculators, there are gamblers having fun doing on-chain digging stuff. There are long-term holders who never sell. A lot of Bitcoin. I know some Bitcoin owners who have been holding Bitcoin since 2010, haven't sold probably in the last 10 years. There are VCs where we engage in. Like we mentioned about Polychain, we just launched the investment announcement 2 days ago. Some of the institutional investors who have LPs, who have real backers behind them as well, who seek returns. So different dynamics, right? They have different time frame in terms of how they want to see the returns. Some of them wants to hodl forever. Some of them are very short term. I think from the beginning of last year, when Ordinals came out, it was very community driven, meaning there was no VCs. Some people was even kind of claiming this we don't need the VCs, right? Kind of fuck the Wall Street, screw the VCs kind of a vibe. It was very, very interesting in the beginning, very anarchist, right? Kind of bring back the ICO kind of craziness back. It was great in a nutshell. But we also noticed most of those kind of pure community-driven projects had some bottleneck when they hit some certain threshold, right? It's very difficult to really access to certain, social trust and also a lot of the networks without any VC backing or any other real serious investor backing them. So that's another part. Last year was basically only all kinds of like on-chain asset creation, right? Most of the BRC20 was completely fair mint. So you don't actually need any private investor. You can't actually have a private investor on that note, right? Most of the ordinals NFT was open minted. It was like free mint as well. Whereas building infrastructure, we actually really need serious investors. Like ones actually can provide value, can give you like signals, can actually help you move the mountain and things like that, right? They are actually long-term. I'm talking about long-term, like at least like 3 or even 10 years kind of a time frame. They don't want to actually sell their position in the next 3 months, that kind of stuff, right? So that's a very, very different. Obviously, when we talk about trust, right, it's a very important word. Building ecosystem requires trust. Talking to investor requires trust. The more investor we receive, the more humble we have to get, right? Like it's definitely not a time to celebrate. It's actually time to heads down building in a way, right? So building ecosystem, I have almost over like 10 years, almost 10 years experience now. It requires like a lot of efforts in terms of spending time with the people you are dealing with, including builders, including investors, and actually really help them to achieve the product market fit. Engin mentioned that the Bitcoin ecosystem product market fit is very early. There's a lot of assumptions we are kind of validating or devalidating actually as well. Like something we thought people are going to love it. Eventually, some people building our ecosystem didn't work out. Something we thought was like, nah, nothing really interesting, but actually have a lot of momentum. Like just basic lending. Like we had a protocol with over 300 million TVL, like a lot of borrower, lender as well. So some kind of basic but boring stuff, but actually have real users. Some of things that are very like interesting, sounds like sci-fi, like with like Web3 AI or whatever. It's very early stage, still conceptual stage. For us, it's like helping the protocols to really achieve the product market fit and having the real user provide a value and enable them is I would say for me is more meaningful and valuable than just helping them create a buzzword and then they eventually raise some whatever money and eventually fail 6 months later. I feel that's not necessarily what we want to do as Bitlayer.
I couldn't agree more with that, by the way. But I also feel like the investment landscape is changing quite a bit. There was a significant amount of investment in 2020, 2021, and a lot of investors saw a lot of positivity at first, and then we saw the bear market around June 2022, and then we saw FTX and a bunch of challenges, and maybe and possibly the alt market is suffering right now from investor unlocks and team unlocks, and I think the market is cognizant of that, and they're also adapting and they're changing. So I think investors are becoming more savvy and smarter, and they're not so much investing in kind of buzzwords or buzz projects. It's more investing in, underlying fundamentals to an extent, but also potential opportunity in different ecosystems. But I also think there's kind of, the rise of a fair launch model is starting to get a little bit more powerful. But a fair launch model is difficult for an investor, right? How are you going to get your money back? Well, I have to do the on-chain work. You mean I don't get tokens? Yes, you will eventually get tokens, but only if you perform the on-chain activities. So I think the investment landscape is adapting and changing and maturing a lot. And I actually think there's probably, I don't have the statistics, but I'm guessing there's a lot more investment coming up this year and over next year. But they're also adapting to some of the challenges that they faced in 2020 and 2021. And I think the market is feeling a little bit of the residual effects of some of that investment. And that's why the alt market, while Bitcoin is close to 60K, maybe it's 61K, 62K US, but alts is suffering a little bit. And a lot of that is unlocks, and a lot of that is team unlocks. And I think investors are starting to see this because they have at least a vested interest, for the crypto ecosystem in general to grow and to expand. So I think it's really adapting and changing. But I think it's an exciting time. It's an incredibly exciting time to be in the space and to be in the ecosystem. You see a lot of speculation and a lot of hype, but even if you just think about before the halving, we got to an all-time high for Bitcoin. That's amazing, right? So I'm really excited about 2024 and 25, and I think investors play a significant role in the success of our industry. You have to tread with caution with investors as well, and the rise of the fair launch model is going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and kind of going back to Bitcoin's original ideology, I also think is really important. But I think it's very an exciting time, and I'd be very interested to be here in a year from now and talk to you about the same price of Bitcoin in a year from now.
We have a unique perspective into investment, I suppose, because we are kind of like player managers, right? We are both entrepreneurs that start the products, that grow the products, spin them out, but also we invest in them, so we can look at them from both perspectives. Specifically in the context of Bitcoin, there are two key stakeholders, right? The investors and the teams that are actually building cool stuff on with Bitcoin. So when we look at the investors, majority of the investors have a larger crypto thesis or approach, and they are in the process of building their perspective for how, in what theme, what thesis, with what approach they should actually deploy their capital to Bitcoin-specific projects. And then when we look at the teams, there are teams that are coming either from native Bitcoin implementations or teams that are coming from, again, more EVM-related projects and kind of like scratching their heads on like how are we going to build from on Bitcoin and benefit from this opportunity that's swelling, right? What we decided to do is to take more of a almost like a facilitator role, looking at this both perspectives on the table. And we decided to start an accelerator called Bitcoin DeFi Accelerator to bring together the investors that are keen on investing in Bitcoin-related projects and the teams that are building on Bitcoin and looking for a home for, again, like pushing what's possible with Bitcoin further thematically. And this is something that we do at Thesis level. We partnered with Draper Associates and Boost VC. So we will be running this as like a 6-week program, and we will be giving each startup $150,000 American dollars, and we will be providing from our own entrepreneur perspective support and mentorship on the key areas of what early stage teams need. This includes Bitcoin native tooling, and mentorship on legal and regulatory matters. And I would say that less defensive, more offensive. Builders probably know what I mean by this. And then distribution matters, right? Anything like one of the most important things for any early stage business is to think about distribution and what that means for a Bitcoin first business. So that's like one thing that we are doing related to investment. And the second thing is that we will probably start an ecosystem fund for projects that are farther along than an early stage to actually provide them like funding to grow them and then have a rolling entourage of investors that will be participating on rolling rounds to the teams that will be helping us grow the ecosystem.
Engin, Tristan, and Charlie, thank you so much for this insightful panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Is your company ready for the next evolution in financial strategy? Bitcoin for Corporations is your partner in securing the future of your business. With exclusive membership benefits, our comprehensive masterclass, and a network of trusted service providers, we provide the insights and resources to help you incorporate Bitcoin into your financial strategy, ensuring stability and long-term value. Strengthen your business. Innovate with confidence. Bitcoin for corporations, protecting your treasury and positioning you for the future.